Hey guys, cops are everywhere tonight. We're at a new bar. Shh. Free speech is prohibited. And in prohibition, you can only hear it at speakeasies. So just be quiet, keep to yourselves. Let's listen to these two. We got Candace Owens on the right and Dr. Cornel West on the left. And we're gonna quietly listen to them, but the second you hear a siren, we gotta get the hell out of here. Shh. Hi guys, welcome to the show. Welcome to the pub.
How you doing, my brother?
I'm glad to have you back, Cornel. I'm glad we finally got you, Candace.
Thanks for having me.
Now, obviously, we have both of you here. You had that fight on Fox, both black, one right, one left. Obviously, the first question is going to be sex. Sex in 29.
Cuz just come straight out with it. Okay, this is gonna be it's gonna be about sex. Right off the bat, man, that's what it's going to be, about sex. Okay, all right, let's hear what they gotta say. Now you also gotta consider you're dealing with like generations of like in between each other. They got like at least 2 generations in between them, so it might not be a left and right conversation. We gotta consider that. Okay.
19. Like I rarely discuss this subject on the show, but I wanted to come sort of sideways with you guys on this. I couldn't imagine being a 20-year-old girl right now, or even a young man in college, with the culture we have today of Me Too and feminism, and I'm at the point now where I think it might be killing romance. Because with all this constant need for uber consent, how do you court a lady anymore? Like if you were a 20-year-old man.
Well, I'd have to really use my imagination, brother. That was a long time ago. I can tell you that. No, but it's 2 things. One is you got the art of intimacy, which we're losing.
Art of intimacy. Okay.
So that the notion of being vulnerable, the notion of surrendering as opposed to just resigning or dominating, that's being lost. You see, my generation, it was Otis Redding, Try a Little Tenderness.
Right.
Try a little tenderness.
Say my name. It's a very different orientation and disposition, you see. But on the other...
See, that's that generation right there. That's just the generational differences he's talking about. Okay.
Say my name. It's a very different orientation and disposition, you see.
That's the niche.
But on the other hand, you got all of the policing that takes place. And so it's hard for people to really allow themselves to be themselves. And you can't really have a serious relationship if it's just posing, posturing, wearing a mask.
Yeah. Well, you were in D.C. You just met a man, happily married. I met a million Trump girls in D.C. I used to do a show there. And they were all having a lot of trouble finding a dude. And you thought, if this was 50 years ago, you wouldn't have women's political beliefs affecting their love lives.
Right. I mean, I think first and foremost, what we're seeing now is not feminism. It's something that's morphed into, I call it toxic feminism. They're pretending to be feminists, but it's not that at all, and it is scary for men to want to date. And the irony is that these toxic feminists, or modern feminists, whatever you want to call them, third wave feminists, are creating men that they don't want to date. They don't want men to act like they have their tails in between their legs. That's actually, there's something that is very unnatural about that, seeing men like that. But we have a culture and society that's sort of promoting it. I mean, I'm staunchly against it, and I think, the Me Too movement is something that I spoke out against instantly. The concept of just convicting men, absent any details, seeing things trend like #BelieveWomen.
Whoa, she's against that? Okay. All right, I might like Candace a little bit for that one right there. All right, if y'all like this style of content, please do me a favor, hit the subscribe button and also the notification bell so that when we do release any content, you'll be first to be notified.
Men, absent any details, seeing things
like
trend
that.
like #BelieveWomen.
I like that.
I mean, these are the sorts of things, and I'm correlating this to making me think of DC and the Christine Blasey Ford stuff, like just believe women. That's a scary thing. I mean, that's literally how black men got lynched.
Right, yeah.
That's literally what happened to, I mean, they got lynched. Just believe the women, this was the allegation, and go out after them. So I will never promote that sort of an ideology. There should always be facts.
Hold on. Let's go, Candace Owens. That was
Fire!
And that's something that we're seeing
Fire!
sort of disappear today.
But you would agree, of course, that there ought to be mutual respect.
Of course.
There ought to be accountability, and there ought to be reciprocity in that regard. Oh no, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. There should be accountability.
Absolutely.
It's just the left is primarily responsible for this. They start out with a concept that
the
sounds
Me Too
good,
movement.
like rape is bad. Let's stop sexual assault. You go, I agree with that, and then they keep pushing that until they've kind of killed it for both sexes. Until, like, I heard about this thing where you have this consent app, and you both list what's going to happen sexually together.
What?
And then you both sign it.
Yeah, I've never heard of that.
What?
Like, that's what prostitutes
You
do.
heard of that, Michelle?
I have heard about that, and the crazy part about that app is that even after they have sex, the woman is allowed to revoke consent. So she could have consented.
Oh, really?
Yes,
And then you can
I've
wake
heard
up in the
that.
morning and decide that you no longer consent. And this is what I'm talking about. It's really scary stuff. And what I always try to tell women when I speak to them is I try to remind them that men are not dropped off by the stork. Like, they're our sons. So we're creating a society that our sons can't thrive in, that our fathers can't thrive in.
So what this does is, if a woman decides to do something like that, and I understand that there are times when a woman, if a woman was to wake up and she don't remember what happened, and then she looks over and she sees a condom nearby, she automatically think that she might have. Hold up, how could I have given consent if I wasn't this, or if I don't remember being in the state where I can give consent? I do know that those type of things happen. So I know that that's not what she's talking about, but there are cases when these young ladies say that they might not remember. That's the other side of it that I heard.
Sons. So we're creating a society that our sons can't thrive in, that our fathers can't thrive in, that our brothers can't thrive in. So I always use my platform to speak out against it.
Well, this trick of using the nice verbiage to make the things sound justified, you see this with Antifa, where they say we're anti-fascist. What, you're against us? All right, you're pro-fascist. Or even with Black Lives Matter, you go, well, I don't think cops are racist. I didn't say that, I said Black Lives Matter. Are you against Black Lives Matter? Well, then you're against Black lives. You're saying they don't matter. Even pro-life and pro-choice play that game. Yeah, you end up being anti-life and anti-choice. And
That's a good question.
It's rhetoric that's used to trick you.
Well, part of it is, we live in a culture where these categories and labels tend to reduce each and every one of us to just one particular small aspect of who we are as human beings. And so the richness of who we are, and the contradictions that we all are, the incongruities that we all are, you see. All of us are shot through with all kind of incoherencies. That's what it is to be human. But you get one label, reduce just one particular aspect, and then you can use that as a weapon to go at folk, you see. And so, the examples that you give, the Me Too movement, it can be reducible in such a way that you end up overlooking the complexity of relationships, but you want respect, accountability, and answerability. Antifa, there's nothing wrong with being anti-fascist. Fascism is an evil, right? We know it's an evil. We all ought to be anti-fascist in a fundamental way.
I think we all are.
Well, no, you got fascists in the world now.
Who? Oh, in the world. In America.
I apologize for being ignorant, but I have to say this. I have to look up fascism. I don't know what it is to be a fascist. Hold on 1 second.
Okay, give me an American fascist.
Oh my God! You got neo-Nazi parties of fascists.
Neo-Nazi.
But what percentage of the American
Oh no, it's a
populace
small,
is
very,
that?
very small. But I mean, there's such a thing as fascists in America.
Sure.
And then you got a spectrum, because I mean, there's a spiritual fascism inside of all of us, in terms of what Augustine called the libido dominante.
Okay, so fascism is a form of far-right authoritarian or ultra-nationalism characterized by dictatorial power, forcible suppression of opposition, and strong regimentation of society and the economy that rose to prominence in early 20th century Europe. All right. And what are 3 examples of fascism? 3 large fascist countries were Italy under Benito Mussolini, Nazi Germany under Adolf Hitler, and Spain under Francisco Franco. Whoa. Mussolini invented fascism in Italy in the 1910s and developed it fully in the 1930s. Wow. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. I'm on it.
Which is a lust for domination.
Yeah.
And as a Christian, I could see it inside of myself. I can see it inside of every human being. Sin, a gangster proclivity, resides inside of us. That is a kind of spiritual fascism.
Yep.
But political, economic fascism, institutional forms, we don't have a fascist party, but we got people who have deep fascist sensibilities. I'm going at Brother Trump on this in terms of when you actually attempt to engage in forms that are swerving outside of the law or suspending the law or demonizing vulnerable people, those are quasi-fascist sensibilities. But fascism as a whole ideology, we don't have a wholesale fascist ideological movement, but we've got some elements of it. The Klan had deep fascist sensibility. Would you agree with the Klan was deeply fascist?
Absolutely, and we have to remind ourselves that the Klan, they were Democrats, and I was actually going to make the
Yes,
argument
they
that
were.
I
Yes, they
see
were.
the Democrats actually they have a lot of fascist tendencies. And just in talking about the fact that I cannot go to a college campus and speak about the fact that I'm a black conservative and talk about why I believe in conservatism for black Americans, why I love Dr. Thomas Sowell, why I believe that the
Sowell's a
economics,
brilliant man. He's a brilliant man.
wonderful
I
man.
mean, I think he's wrong on a lot of things, but he's a brilliant man. Go right ahead.
I think he's right, but you can
Right.
think that, and we
Oh, man, I like this. All right, it's getting a little saucy. It's getting saucy. Let's go.
Yeah, I think he's wrong on a lot of things, but he's a brilliant man.
I
Go
like
right
Thomas
ahead.
I think he's right,
Yeah.
but you can
Right.
think that, and we can
Right.
both sit here
And
and we can
have
have this
argument.
conversation
That's
and
right.
have an argument, and
That's
we do
right.
that.
Absolutely.
But the fact that he can go to a college campus and show up and he won't be met with Antifa protesters, right? And people trying to shut down the speech and threaten the event, and the university demanding that you pay for an absurd police presence that no one can really afford to put together. That's how you censor me. That's how you shut me down. So to me, that's institutionalized fascism that we see every day on the left. You will never see that on the right. You'll never see any place that you go as conservative. You will be welcomed. We might say, hey, I disagree with him, but I want to hear his ideas. So I think this dialogue, I think it's important so that people can determine who they actually think is right. If we don't talk, they're not getting a fair determination.
And I resent that isn't accepted as a truth. I mean, the understanding from a lot of, maybe half the country now, is that there's places that Cornel West would go to do a talk, and there'd be Nazis outside Sieg Heiling trying to prevent him, and that's just
Absolutely not.
true. Those,
Well, I think
those
the reason
12
there,
guys
though-
are not
Right,
touring the
right.
country trying to stop liberal talks.
But I think one of the reasons is that you don't have a strong right-wing Nazi or right-wing fascist presence inside of the university. The university is very much a place where liberalism is hegemonic. And when you violate certain sensibilities of a variety of different liberals, then they can be intolerant. What you're calling fascist is intolerant. Going against that grain focuses much more on you. Now, you and I share a deep indictment of liberalism and neoliberalism. You do it from the right, mine is from the left. But because my understanding of the severe limitations of liberalism does incorporate certain elements of it, and you don't have strong Nazi presence in the university. You hardly have strong conservative presence in the university.
You
Most
don't have a
universities
strong
today
Nazi presence
are much more
anywhere.
liberal than they are conservative. No, you do. You got it
Where?
in Idaho,
In a shooting range in
Utah.
Alabama?
You got some places in the country that have some white supremacist militia and KKK, and you agree that KKK is fascist, right?
Well, I agree with him that I just don't know where it is in this country. So I've been able to travel to 47 countries over the past, 47 states over the past year, and I've not encountered or seen any pockets where I've seen Ku Klux Klan members. Do I believe that racism still exists? Of course, racism still exists. By the way, it's always going to exist. There's always going to be black people that hate white people. There's going to be white people that hate black people. But the question of whether this is some organized cell in our country that has a lot of power, I strongly disagree with that.
Well, I wouldn't say it has a lot of power. I would say it has some presence. I mean, they have empirical investigations, though, my dear sister, where you've got over 600 and some white supremacist militia groups, some of whom have death threats. And the FBI keeps track of them because the FBI infiltrates them.
Where are they?
You see? I don't know where they are because I
That's
don't.
the
I don't
problem.
hunt
See,
them
that,
down.
They give
that
you
should
death
tell
threats?
you that they're not a presence because we're two black Americans
Absolutely.
and we're two black
Absolutely.
Americans. We should
I mean, the
instantly
FBI
know
is
where
not
they
going to be
are.
lying. I'm not a fan of the FBI.
Well, I'm not saying
killing
I'm not a fan of the either, but I'm saying is that if this was something that was so obvious, two black Americans sitting here, I'd be like, I'll tell you exactly where they are because I walk down the street over here. They're in Virginia, in this city, in this town. They meet here on Sundays. Every black American that I ask that says there's a Nazi or a KKK presence, you just go, where? They go, I don't know, I read it somewhere. And I think that that's unacceptable.
Well, they often cite this SPLC hate map that looks
the
like
SPLC is
post
a hate
offices.
group. I'm on the SPLC list.
Tell me what the SPLC is.
Yeah, please tell me what the SPLC is as well, because they talking about is a map. I ain't like that. What's that gentleman name? What's his name? The guy that made it his business, black guy. He made it his business to meet and become friends with the grand wizard master of the KKK. And he actually did it. They're friends. They're actual, man, that takes some bazans. I don't know what a bazan is, and I hope that didn't come off racist to my Italian brothers and sisters. I know somebody got offended by me doing that. And if you did, that's on you, because I didn't mean to daggone get on your nerves when I said that, and I didn't mean to offend you. But if you were offended by it, that's on you. Because clearly I wasn't trying to offend you. You're going to say, he said bazanza. I know he was talking about, and that's racist. Get out my face.
The Southern Poverty Law Center has these hate maps.
They're a hate group.
And you look at it, and
I'm on
it
it.
honestly looks like
I don't
it
see
looks
hate.
like post offices. They're everywhere.
Yeah.
No,
And
but
you go,
they
that's
try
not-
to, but the same is
that's
true. The
just not true.
Anti-Defamation League
I
will
agree.
tell you that there are hate groups against black folk, against Jews, against Muslims, against a variety of different folk, and they've got some data.
But
I mean,
no,
we
they
can't
They're
don't.
deny
also
that.
not considered a credible source.
They're not,
The
because they're
Anti-Defamation
funded.
League is not a-
no,
not a
they're
credible
not.
source.
They're
They're a
funded
joke.
leftists. They're funded
Oh,
leftist
no,
groups.
Anti-Defamation
Progressive.
is not leftist. Now, they coming at me tooth and
I
nail.
sat in Congress with them, and I'm telling you right now,
They're not leftist.
if you saw my recent thing in Congress, I was sitting with all of these professors and all of these people that were, and they had no numbers. And they said, well, we don't know the numbers, but we do know that it's happening. So to me, that seems like a means to control black Americans. This is what I talk about. If this was such a big issue that we had to be worried about it, we wouldn't need an FBI report to tell us. No one needed, my grandpa growing up in the South with the real KKK, he wasn't waiting on an FBI report to tell him that the KKK was
That's
there.
true.
They were outside of his door,
That's
shooting
true.
bullets inside, and he was running to the back of his house. So this now, we have people that are more fearful, and yet there's less evidence, except they keep saying that there are reports and there are groups that are telling them. That's what I think we have to step outside of. Fair?
But you got all these different attacks, though, sister, on folk, not just in churches, but people with death threats and so forth, and these folk who supposedly are keeping track on the sources of these threats say that they're not just falling from the sky. There's got to be some networks that are in place.
Well, they say that Candace and I are the networks. They say that Jordan
Well, no, I don't-
Peterson, Dave Rubin are the networks.
I don't think nobody said Sister Candace is head of any
I'm on
kind
the
of...
SPLC list. They put some map on, and they said that I was radicalizing people on the internet. Is it such a radical idea to think that black Americans can do it without government handouts? Okay, then guilty as charged, because that's literally what I go around and I say on stage. I say black Americans can do it without government handouts.
Well, she definitely is on whatever list this is, the SPLC. I don't know if the SPLC, what does it mean? Did they say what it meant? SPLC? But I do know that that's one of the reasons why even I am a little hesitant and doing a whole boatload of Candace Owens reactions right away, because she's like a trigger for certain communities. For certain communities, she's a trigger. And me sitting down listening to her, I swear, and 14 minutes into this conversation between she and Dr. Cornel West, and I haven't heard anything yet. That was wrong. And I feel like I got to apologize to the people who was hoping that I'd catch something and be like, oh, God dang it, you said this and it's that, and you said that and it's this. Make up your mind, Candace.
I am now, across the board, they say that I'm radical and I'm poisoning people. They tried to blame me for inspiring a mass shooting in New Zealand, saying that this person got radicalized by my ideas of black conservatism in America. I mean, they play really horrible stuff, and fortunately for you, because you are
on their side.
Hail in liberal land. You are a liberal.
You're on their
Well, I'm
side.
not a liberal now. I'm a leftist.
You're a leftist.
I'm a leftist.
What's the difference?
But she's saying since you're on their side and you play fair with them, they're not going to give you that same smoke that they give to her.
I'm critical,
Yeah.
What's the difference between a liberal
Oh, the
and a leftist?
difference is liberalism refuses to engage in a critique of capitalism, refuses to engage in a critique of empire and imperial policies, and it refuses to engage in the milquetoast character of the Democratic Party. Liberals are in the Democratic Party. I have a critique of the milquetoast character of the Democratic Party.
Okay.
When you talk about the plantation of the Democratic Party, I'm with you wholeheartedly. I've talked about the Obama plantation. We can talk about the Clinton plantation and so forth. Now, I come right back and say, there's a Trump plantation too. All of these politicians, all of these parties have their plantations.
Well, I'm
And I'm not a party person
I don't
in that
tell
sense.
people that you can go anywhere and hear me speak. There is nowhere where I tell people that they should abandon the Democrat Party and go to the Republican Party.
But you got a critique of the Democratic Party, Democratic leadership.
Oh, 100%.
Absolutely.
I do. And Republican leadership as well. I mean, there are people in the Republican Party I still have absolutely no respect, God bless his soul, for John McCain, the Paul Ryan types. I regularly critique those people
that's true.
too,
That's
but
true.
it doesn't make the headlines, right?
Right,
So,
right,
I mean,
right.
I critique both. What I advocate for is independence. And particularly government independence and shrinking government. I believe in free markets and a limited government structure. That's pretty much what I believe. And yeah, I'm painted as this
She's focused and freaking sharp.
horrific monster.
She's very
You
sharp.
saw it after our debate. Like, we had a debate, and it's like, headlines, big explosion. That's not how I felt ending that debate. That's not how you felt. I emailed, tried to get him on the show, but that's what they need. They need to make it seem like we're constantly at war.
Well, you're a huge
People-
threat to the
people
left.
sensationalize. They sensationalize these kind of things all the time for their own ends, for
Right.
their own gain. No, but I didn't mean to interrupt. Go right ahead.
No. And I think Candace is a threat.
Is that what y'all do? Now, if this doesn't hit you, then hey, let me know. If it does hit you, let me know. Is that what you want? Do any of y'all want to see the sensationalization of fights on the left and right? Did some of you click this video hoping to see them going at each other next and to see your person beating the hell out of the other person verbally? Is that what you wanted to see? Why? I mean, trust me, I know that's entertainment. I get it. And sometimes we want to feel like we're on the right side. We are not on the right or the left as far as what we're talking about, but we want to feel like we're on the correct side of history, right? So when you see someone who represents your side and they're speaking to someone of equal intelligence on the opposite side, you are kind of sort of tuning in so that you can see some blood. Is that you? Because honestly, I want what they want. I really want what they want. I mean, yeah, I want to see them go at it too from their opposite positions, but I want them to be able to do it in a way where I understand their conversation. Then I look inside the comment section and I see you guys are doing the exact same thing without bringing one another down, if that makes any sense. I think it's possible.
To the left because she's bringing blacks to Trump. And without the black vote, the DNC is done forever. Can you maybe explain what Blexit is?
Yeah, so I started the black exit from the Democrat Party we've seen pretty much the same thing. The Democrats, it's undoubtedly have taken advantage of the black vote over the last 6 decades. That is not, you cannot question that. And any black person in good conscience that sits down and says that the Democrat Party has not taken advantage of the black vote, in my opinion, is a bad moral character. And you have to watch those bad faith actors. To me, Blexit is about reminding the black community that we are staunchly conservative. We are conservative. You cannot untether the Black community from our faith. You know, I grew up in a very Christian household.
You can't.
You cannot untether the Black community, although the government has systemically attempted it, from the family. I grew up and my grandfather was all about the family. These are largely conservative principles now, as you have the left is advocating really for the disruption of family. Trans, men can be women and women should be men, and kids should pick their gender. And if you Google, this is a real thing, if you Google straight couples, all that returns back to you are gay couples. And they say there's something wrong with you if you believe
Really?
in your family. And they're trying to grow government.
Hold on, I gotta see this. Okay, straight couples, I gotta see this. Okay, now I'm about to fact check you right now on the spot, huh? Because Candace Owens said if I Google straight couples, that's all I'll get back is okay. All right. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 straight couples, and 1, 2, 3, 4 gay couples. What is sex like for straight couples? Ranking couples. Here's what straight couples can learn. The number one website for this, when you Google straight couples, it says, here's what straight couples can learn from gay couples. Get out of here. That's the very first thing on here. Queer lessons for straight couples. What? 30 things straight couples can learn from gay couples? What? Nah, man. Gay couples have less strained marriages than straight couples, study says. What gay couples get about relationships that straight couples often don't? Candace Owens is absolutely right, bruh. Get out of here.
And we've already experimented with that in the Black community. We've seen that more government has earned us more heartache over the last 60 years. You can look at any statistic. Illiteracy rates in Black America, they're not serving us in terms of the Department of the Education. You know that, I know that. The breakdown of families, single motherhood rate at an all-time high at 74%. You know that, I know that. So how can we stand behind people that are advocating for more government? Handouts. $22 trillion into the welfare system. Black Americans are poorer today than when they started giving out welfare in the beginning. So my perspective is just, we gotta try something different, and that something different is getting up off of our own 2 feet, putting our families back together, starting our own businesses, and that is a free market capitalist perspective, which lands me on the side of conservatism.
But you see,
Let's go, young lady. That was a really good argument, and sheesh, and the proof is in the pudding when I went to go check it out. And I think it's important that we see that.
exactly. But I think the challenge here is
Let's
that
go,
both
Doc.
of us share a deep Christian faith.
Right?
Both of us share a profound commitment to not just our family,
Wow.
but our loved ones.
Wow.
And both of us recognize that when the issues of integrity, honesty, decency, generosity, that just cuts across race, gender, sexual orientation, national identity. Those are just spiritual and moral values. But I think the deep disagreement is, and I think Charles Murray and others have pointed this out, that the impact of the market on working and poor parents, no matter who they are, has been devastating. When you've had profits quadrupling at the top and you've got wage stagnation for 40 years, how are you going to be able to keep your family together when 2 or 3 of you, when you do work, you still live in poverty? This is where wealth inequality comes in. And see, when you talk about free market capitalism, if we had a free market capitalism, that's one thing. We've got a corporate dominated.
We have crony capitalism.
Exactly. It's crony, it's predatory, 1% at the top. No matter what color they are at the
We
top,
shouldn't have
even though
bailed
they're
out the banks.
disproportionately vanilla, but we shouldn't have bailed out the banks.
I
We would
agree.
agree with that. No,
Totally agree.
absolutely,
We need real
absolutely.
we need real capitalism, real free market capitalism, not crony capitalism.
Well, I would just say we need a fair society, whatever it takes.
Right.
I
And
think.
But how do
so
you
what
do
we're
that? I don't
agreeing-
understand.
but we're
Well, one
agreeing-
is you have to have conversations, to be honest, to put a spotlight on what is not talked about. And if you
Like
have
CEO
taboo
salaries?
issues that you're unable to interrogate and question, then you can't have a conversation. And part of the dialogue is we got this little narrow conversation between a Republican Party, most of which is tied to big money. You got a Democratic Party that's tied to big money, but acts like it's in the diversity and so forth. And by diversity, what they mean is symbolic representation of well-to-do black and brown and yellow and women folk at the top, when the vast majority of black people and white and women are catching hell. And they're supposed to live vicariously through the success of these celebrities at the top, you see. And so in that sense, you just have to be honest.
He's right.
It's hard to have a candid conversation about these things.
It is extremely honest. I mean, extremely difficult to have a good, honest conversation. I think because people are afraid they're going to be attacked. They really are. And they don't feel like going back and forth with people who just don't understand them. Also, some people just, they have the right information in their heads. They're in the proper, they're going in the right direction. But sometimes they don't know how to communicate their thoughts plainly enough, or in the style that will land on their listener properly, where they aren't offended. Like some people just want to give information, believing that they're helping someone with this information. But before they gave that information, they didn't acknowledge that they understand why their listener believes or feels the way that they feel. But then offer them something else, which is your information. When you can't disarm someone properly without them jumping to their defenses, then 9 times out of 10, the conversation is not going to go well. So you're going to hold back on your next bit of conversations whenever it's something of the same topic, something of the same subject. We do got to consider the fact that a lot has gone on in the last, I want to say 2 years, because of everything that's been happening. The last administration, what happened with how people was acting amongst one another and going back and forth with one another. But it actually got worse when the shock of the nation happened and a black man won the presidency. Certain things happened, certain things were said, and a certain nastiness of people decided to take arms at that point. They decided to tell you who they was, what they was, and the side that they're on. And things got a little nasty, and it created a world that needed a voice, like Donald Trump. It needed a voice like Donald Trump. Some people needed a voice. They needed a voice, and both sides needed to be shook the heck up. It happens. Both times. I mean, some people say, I wish he could have run another 4 years. Well, guess what? He probably did all of the shaking that was necessary. I mean, look at us now. Look at us now. This is progression right here. You might not see it that way, but this is actual progression. We're having conversations that ordinarily we wouldn't have had if it weren't for those other things happening. The last 3 administrations it set us up for this. And now we're here. We got to make the best of it.
And so in that sense, you just have to be honest.
He's right.
It's hard to have a candid conversation about these things.
But part of that's our fault. So I take the perspective, so what I believe in above anything else is personal responsibility. So I don't look externally and say that everything that's happened to Black America is not our fault.
I agree.
Right? We have people that, yes,
I agree.
and this has to do with the breakdown of family. When you remove the father from the home, that's why I'm so strong about dads being in the home. Those kids will pursue that paternity elsewhere. So we're seeing Black kids turn to the streets. They're turning to Jay-Z, they're turning to hip hop, and they're idolizing these people. And these people are taking them in a direction that's not helpful to them, right? So the majority...
Hey, don't say nothing about Jay-Z. Jay-Z is the man. Hove did that. So hopefully you wouldn't have to go through that. That's what he said in his bars. I was raised in the projects of roaches and rats. He didn't say that exact thing, but that's what he was saying. But he was saying that I'm going to tell my story and of what I went through so that anybody who's listening don't have to go through it. I'm going to speak up for daggone Jay-Z.
Idolizing these people, and these people are taking them in a direction that's not helpful to them, right? So the majority of the, we know for example, California, 75% of black kids can't pass a literacy exam. They can't read a book, right? But if you ask them trivia questions about Jay-Z and Kanye and rappers like T.I. and Killer Mike, they'd be able to come back to you
Or
on
you
that.
can put them in the studio and their intelligence, and some of them have a genius that's undeniable.
Right.
Most of them, they speak to a whole nation of people who understand them specifically. That's what people don't give these artists credit for. A lot of them speak to a nation of people who hear them specifically. Again, I go back to where I said that Donald Trump was speaking to people who heard him clearly. He spoke their language. And I don't care how much you tell them that Donald Trump was this, that, and the third, they're not going to hear that because they were being spoken to. Like they felt like people when they was being spoken to by this gentleman.
Right. So my thing is that those decisions, like us taking, welfare incentivize that bad behavior in terms of removing fathers from the home. We have to be smart enough and wise enough to understand that and to turn that down. The answer to all of these problems is not more government solutions. You can't say the government did all of this and now we need more government to correct it. That doesn't make sense. That to me is the definition of insanity. Trying the same thing over and over again and expecting different results.
But part of it is that our precious black brothers and sisters who are poor and working class need exactly what you and I have access to, which is some jobs with a livable wage. They need access to some resources so that their conception of dignity is also tied to responsibility.
Right.
You
But
see?
we have to
and
learn.
that's what we haven't been able to do,
Right.
for the most part. And even when you generate a lot of jobs, it's not jobs with a living wage. Even when you have access to the housing market, it's hard to get the housing that is adequate, especially given the market taking over, the gentrification that's taking place, people unable to gain access to neighborhoods. See, I grew up in a neighborhood. I didn't grow up in a hood. Now, we were broke as the Ten Commandments financially, but it was still a ghetto. It wasn't a hood. It was a neighborhood. You know Donny Hathaway's Ghetto. When he sings that song, and he and Leroy Hudson wrote the Ghetto, they talking about love, affirmation, as well as poverty, but it was not victim mentality at all. Curtis Mayfield was singing, he's singing about the ghetto in Chicago. He's not singing about a victim mentality at all.
That is so true. I don't remember a whole bunch of people from my neighborhood when we were growing up complaining about anything. People didn't complain about much of anything at all. Didn't. And everybody was going through it, and nobody had any money. Nobody had any money. But everybody was just hustlers and like, I'm going to go get it. I'm going to figure out a way. God will work it out. I got everything I need. Don't worry about it. I got it. Like, that was the type of attitude and mentality that was in our hood as well, in our neighborhood as well. Yeah, I like the way he broke that down.
Right.
He's talking about dignity, resilience, and struggle, but you would admit the poverty was overwhelming. That's partly a result of the history of the country. Slavery, Jim Crow, American terrorism, lynching, and so forth, you see. So that the stress on personal responsibility, I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
But there has to be some structural realities that allow people to gain access to jobs and health care and resources.
And I completely agree with that, and I think that that's where my limited government perspective comes from. We have to, this is why I support Trump. Peeling back on regulations, I think, is the most important thing that he's done in office. It becomes impossible for an entrepreneur, like I had cousins that live in the projects, who, I want to start a food truck. And then they go and they figure out how they can start a food truck, and there's about 80,000 government regulations and steps preventing them from doing that. So it de-incentivizes them. Now they no longer want to start a food truck, and this is what I love about Trump. So people are caught up in I don't like the way he speaks, I don't like his decorum. I like his policies, I like what he's doing. And so I call myself a Trumplicant. I like Trump. If the Democrats had a candidate that was talking the way that he was talking, then I would vote for that candidate as well. But I think he's the only person that's sort of disrupting exactly what you're talking about and actually presenting.
Wow, I never looked at it that way. She breaking it down, man. See, this is what I'm talking about, man. This is what I'm talking about.
More opportunities, and that's a fact, because now we have the ever in this country lowest ever black unemployment. So you can say it's not enough money to support the households.
We give Trump credit for that.
Right, but you can say there's not enough money to support the households, but that's decisions that are being made.
Yeah, Y'all let me know what y'all think about this in the comments below. This is part 1. We are going to move on to part 2 here shortly. Hopefully I'll see y'all over there, because this has been a remarkable back and forth conversation. This young lady, she's smart. She is poised. She's relaxed. She's studied. She's not as calculated as I thought. She probably need to feel some of what Cornel West is saying, in my opinion. But based off of what she's saying, I can't really fault her for anything that she said so far. Nothing. She's sharp. She's sharp. Y'all let me know what y'all thought about this in the comments below. If you have yet to hit that subscribe button, please make sure you do so on your way out the door. Once again, guys, I'm Van, and now we are all the LFR family, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video, hopefully inside the Patreon as well. You all have been amazing. Love y'all. Bye.